All right. It's the live Panther-Lair Post-Game show here on a Saturday night. It's a little bit late in the evening, but I don't think anybody's going to sleep after that one. Pitt escapes Western. I keep saying things like escapes, and I just put an article on the front page of Panther-Lair.com about survival, about how Pitt's goal was survival, and I think there's truth to that, and I think we could talk about that, about how survival was the goal on the trip to Kalamazoo. But they just won a game by like 21 points? Is my math off on that? They won a game by 3 touchdowns on the road with their number 3 quarterback and a whole bunch of other guys out. I almost don't think I should say they escaped. You know, if it finished 20-13 or 24-13 or maybe even 27-13, maybe I could say escaped. But in the end, they ultimately didn't escape. They beat them up. They won the game convincingly. By the end, yeah, Zachary Herbster says escape might be a little strong, and I think you're probably right, Zach. I mean, they didn't escape. They won this game. You know, and I mean, really were in control from the start. And there were moments when it got dicey, and there were moments where you said, "Uh-oh, look out, here we go." You know, if Pitt makes one mistake here, if Western Michigan makes one big play here, look out, gonna be in trouble. After they threw the little, lateral wide receiver pass, which I think everybody and their brother saw that coming. You know, when he throws the ball back to that receiver there, you know a pass is coming. And when they did that, that cut the score to 20-13. And you thought, uh-oh, trouble's brewing here. This is going to be a problem. And Pitt rattles off a couple of touchdown drives in a row to make sure that it's not a problem. And they end up with a 21-point victory. And like I said, I put this on the front page of Panther-Lair.com, and I'll say it again. This game was about survival. This game was about not losing, hopefully not getting anyone else hurt, but mostly just finding a way to get the hell out of Kalamazoo with a win. And whether it was a 1-point win or a 21-point win, it was just about getting out of there with a win. And everything you need to think of, I think everything you think about this game and everything we say about this game and everything we talk about this game, I think we have to think of it in that context. That every decision that was made with the thought of what puts us in the least amount of harm's way. You know, what puts us in harm's way the least? What gives us the lowest risk here? And I know people hate that. I know fans hate it. They hate it when coaches, when you play not to lose, that's what you end up doing. And I understand that. But given the situation and given the circumstances, that was the objective. Just don't screw it up. You know, and I think that was the message to Nate Yarnell. And shoot, we talked about it this week. Don't screw it up. Don't make mistakes. Don't make the big mistake that does turn the game. The defense should be strong enough. The running game should be able to do its job. Don't make mistakes. We could go back and forth about the play calling and which kind of plays were being used and whether they ran too much and throwing here or doing this or doing that. Just don't make mistakes. This is not last year's Western Michigan team. The defense should be able to play well enough against this team that you should be able to hang on and beat them, even if you're not really doing a whole lot offensively. And of course, I mean, we know Pitt ended up doing a fair amount offensively. 400 yards, 34 points. I guess, technically 27 points offensively. But 400 yards total, 230 yards on the ground. I mean, they were able to, they possessed the ball for damn near 40 minutes, 38 minutes and 36 seconds, 5 of 10 on third downs. I mean, this ended up being a pretty good game offensively. You know, one of these games where when you take a step back and look at the game and you look at the numbers and look at what they actually produced, say, wait, that's actually a pretty good game. That's actually pretty good production. And then when you put it in the context of the goals, you put it in the context of the objectives of the game, with the objective being survival. And nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't matter how it looks. It doesn't matter how it feels over the course of those 60 minutes, just so at the very end, you're 1 point ahead. Just survive. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of, particularly in the first half as we're watching this going on. It reminded me of the Delaware game in 2019. Pitt was all beat up after they beat Central Florida. They had Delaware. It was kind of a similar schedule to this, where they had the FCS game at the end of the month. I think they opened with Virginia, and then they went to Penn State, and then they played UCF. They beat UCF, but they were all beat up. Kenny Pickett was banged up. I forget who. I think AJ Davis was the number one back, and he was hurt. They were all banged up, and so they came out of the UCF game. They had Delaware before they really jumped into the rest of the ACC schedule, and they ended up resting a bunch of guys. Nick Patty started that game. The game ended up being, 20-17 or something like that. It was much closer than it ever should have been, but it was because of the approach they took. It was just about survival. So it wasn't about making you feel good about anything. It wasn't about going out and blowing a team out so everybody walks out of Heinz Field feeling great. It wasn't about that. It was just about, look, we're playing with half a roster or half of our two deep or whatever it was. Just gotta survive. And that's what I think tonight was. Just survive. And guess what? That's what next week's going to be too. Because after what you saw tonight, are you pushing it at all with Keaton Slovis? Are you pushing it with Jared Wayne? Are you pushing it with Haba Baldonado? Shoot, you might even give Izzy Benicanda a week off. After the work he has done in the last 2 weeks, he's carried the ball 50-some times over the last 2 weeks. And he has earned every yard he has gotten. And you had to feel good for him getting some of those big carries late in the fourth quarter because he earned it for the pounding he took for basically the whole first 3 quarters. And we'll talk about him in a second. I'm just sort of, we'll get to that just kind of all over the place right now. But, if I'm Pat Narduzzi, with what I saw tonight, I'm not pushing it with any of those guys. And look, the list of guys who either didn't travel or came out of the game or were there and didn't play. You're talking, you got a lot of guys. You got Keaton Slovis was there, didn't play. Nick Patty didn't travel. Rodney Hammond didn't travel. Devin Danielson didn't travel. Owen Drexel didn't travel. Deion Hayes wasn't there. I don't know if he got hurt. I don't know what that was about, but he wasn't there. Desmond Alexandra, I'm not sure if he traveled, but he didn't play. Marquez Williams came out of the game injured. Nate Temple came out of the game injured. Jared Wayne came out of the game injured. Haba Baldonado came out of the game injured. The defensive ends, they were down to John Morgan, Bam Brima, Chris Maloney, who I don't think has played. He went on scholarship last year. I don't think he's played yet this season. And then somebody told me they sold Nakai Johnson in there. I didn't see Nakai. It's tough to tell on TV, but I didn't see him in there. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 two-deep players, or a lot of them starters, either didn't make the trip or played, and came out of the game with an injury. I'm not pushing any of those guys to play next week. If they're, they could play, but I'm not sure. No, everybody sits. Everybody sits. You should be able to beat Rhode Island with most of the team you put on the field tonight. With Jake Cradle on the offensive line and Marcus Minor and Blake Zabovic and Macton Salves and Carter Warren, those guys don't get time off. They have to play against Rhode Island because at some point they're going to have to string together at least a couple quarters of consistent play, pass blocking and run blocking. But I'm not pushing, like I say, I'm not pushing Keaton Slovis to come back. I'm not pushing Jared Wayne to come back. I'm not pushing Haba Baldonado to come back. I'm not pushing Marquez Williams to come back. You saw tonight what this team can do with the guys they had available, either throughout the night or as the night went on. The guys, the list that kept shrinking of guys they had available. You saw what they can do. And that group that was out there tonight, and even if it's just most of them, should be able to do it against Rhode Island as well. So I'm not pushing it. Next week is another survival game. And it might not look pretty, and they might only score 30 points or 27 points or 24 points. And you might say, this offense is such trash. I'm tired of watching it. You have to step back and look at what the objective was. Look at the goal. The goal was to survive. And Pitt survived this game. They did. And not just survive, but, at a certain point, they started to flourish. And I think that point was in the third quarter. Probably, Eric Hallett's interception in the end zone probably was the turning point. I was just kind of glancing over the scorebook there. It's 13-6 coming out of halftime. Western Michigan gets the ball. Eric Hallett picks off that deep pass. Great play by Eric Hallett. He thought it was the ACC championship game, I guess. Great interception. Pitt goes 3 and out. Western Michigan gets out there and they drive down to the Pitt 15. Start making plays. They start getting some momentum. They fire at the end zone, and Eric Howlett makes another great interception. Right after a Servassier Dennis sack. I'm just like, this is what the second half of the game looked like to me. And so I'm looking at it here. You get that sack by Dennis on second and goal from about the 7 or so. Pushes it back to the 15. On 3rd and goal, Eric Howlett gets the interception. Pitt drives down and scores a touchdown after that with 2 really nice passes from Nate Yarnell. Rolls out to his right and throws to Bub Means. Actually, that wasn't a great pass. That was actually a great play by Bub Means. Let's not forget about Bub Means and making a really good play there. He's a guy who's taken a lot of criticism and a lot of heat over the course of the season so far. Great play by Bub Means on that one. And then the pass to Gavin Bartholomew. I mean, you have to throw to Gavin Bartholomew. I talked about it all week, right? This was a big theme on the Wednesday night show. It was a big theme on the morning pit. I said there's 3 guys you have to get the ball to. It's Izzy Abanikanda. It's Jared Wayne. It's Gavin Bartholomew. Bartholomew's got a 37-yard pass there, you know? Izzy Abanikanda finishes with 133 yards and a touchdown on 31 carries, plus... he had a catch for -5 yards. Let's not count that. Jared Wayne, 3 catches for 94 yards, and then Bartholomew, that 37-yard catch. You have to get the ball to those guys. And they end up scoring a touchdown on the Abanikanda run from the 4, 1st and goal from the 4. And then the next drive, so it's 20-6, and it looks like Western Michigan's going to battle back in it when they get that little trick play. The wide receiver pass for a touchdown is 20-13, and Pitt just marches down the field. And I don't think they faced a single 3rd down on that next drive. First down was a 5-yard run. Well, they had a 3rd down. They had 3rd and 1, and Daniel Carter converted. And it was the only 3rd down they faced on that drive. You know, Yarnell had a really great pass to Konate Mumfield on a rollout. And then, of course, the touchdown pass was just a great play overall. It was a play action. He rolled out to his right and fired to Mumfield for a touchdown. Mumfield's first touchdown, I forget if he caught a touchdown pass or not. It doesn't really matter here at 11:30 on Saturday night. So much to think about this game, so much to talk about this game, and so much about survival. And you saw that this group, even missing some of those injured guys, can survive against Western Michigan, and they can survive against Rhode Island. You can give Keaton Slovis 2 weeks off before ACC play. You can give... who else do you want to look at here on this list? I'm not sure the severity for Owen Drexel or Devin Danielson, but you can give those guys 2 weeks off. You can give Haba Baldonado an extra week to recover from whatever he suffered tonight. Nate Temple, Jared Wayne, Deslin Alexander can get another week off. Marquez Williams can get an extra week off. You can play this game next Saturday shorthanded and still win and still survive, because that's the name of the game. According to us here on the Panther-Lair Post-Game, got a lot of people in the chat already, and I kind of feel like we should just jump into it. Why wait? Everybody came in and got a lot of things to say. Remember, if you want to make sure your comments and questions get read, you can be a super chatter. You can click that little $ down at the bottom, and you can contribute to the podcast, and we will make sure we read your comment and respond to it, and then also answer your questions if you have any questions. Joe New is a super chatter. He says, sorry, Chris, we don't look close to a top 25 team. You don't think so? They just went on the road, minus their starting quarterback, minus all those players I'm talking about that they were missing, and they ended up winning by 3 touchdowns. Good teams win and great teams cover, and Pitt doubled the spread, right? Wasn't it Pitt -10? And I think the spread might have come down a little bit as things started coming out about Nate Yarnell. And Pitt ends up winning by 3 touchdowns. Western Michigan's not very good, but Pitt ends up winning pretty comfortably. A little bit like the Michigan State game. I mean, to be honest, Michigan State was only up by like it was a close game. Michigan State was close with Western Michigan. Ended up scoring a couple touchdowns late to make the final score look a little more spread out than it was. But Pitt was pretty much in control of this game the whole way. The defense looked really dominant, save for that wide receiver touchdown pass. And by the end of the game, your third string quarterback who hasn't played a game in 3 years looked pretty good. Looked like he could run the offense. Your offensive line looked like they could block. Your running backs were running really well. And again, it's just against a MAC team, but you're on the road and, under less than ideal circumstances, facing considerable adversity, you end up with a 3-touchdown win. I'll take it. I think you can count yourself as a top 25 team, particularly as you get closer to full health. Benjamin Glazer started off the comments in the chat, said, who starts next week, and is Nate Yarnell the starter next year? He looks incredibly confident and in control. Yeah, I think, look, if it's me, if I'm Pat Narduzzi, Nate Yarnell is absolutely starting against Rhode Island next week. Absolutely, without any question. Knowing that you're running the risk that he has another good game, and then when Keaton Slovis does come back, if Slovis struggles at any point, there's going to be a chance for Nate Yarnell. Deal with that later. You can handle the PR side of things, later. But I think you absolutely go with Yarnell next week. And is he the starter next year? Sure. I would say so. He looks good. For a guy who, again, hasn't played. November 29th, 2019 is the last time Nate Yarnell played in a live football game. I keep saying, we've had an entire pandemic since Nate Yarnell last played in a live football game. Never mind played in a live football game. You know what I mean? We've gone through the entire shutdown of college football season with no fans in the stands, college basketball season with no fans in the stand. We've changed presidents. We've had drastic, think about all the things that have happened in the last just shy of 3 years. That was the last time Nate Yarnell played in a live football game. And the improvement he made from the start of the game to the finish, I think it was really remarkable. And if he were to continue getting reps throughout the weeks, not just working on the scout team, but actually getting real reps in practice, and then getting playing time in games, I think he's got a high ceiling. I think he could be pretty good. I really do. And, I have to think after what they saw tonight, the coaching staff, not to get too far ahead of themselves, would feel pretty confident about going into next season with Yarnell as the starter. But there's a long way to go between here and there. Another super chatter jumped in at the end. Let's see here. Zachary Herbster says, what do you say to Cignetti haters? Look, I understand. This is a good opportunity to talk about the offense. I understand people who are frustrated with the direction of the offense so far. I understand people who feel like it's bad play calling, or it's boring play calling, or it's too much running, or not creative enough. It's stuck in the whatever. You know what I mean? You see all the criticisms all game long on Twitter and on the message boards. You see what people had to say. And certainly in this game when it was just run. 14 out of the first 15 plays were runs. He only threw 7 passes in the first half, and I think technically 6 in the second half, although one turned into a no play because of the pass interference on the pass to Gavin Bartholomew. And then you had another passing play called where he ended up getting sacked, 3rd down on Pitt's first drive of the second half. So you have about 14 pass plays called. 7 that he actually throws in the first half, 6 that he throws in the second half, plus 1 sack, and one of those passes he threw in the second half was a pass interference, so it didn't count. So he ends up with, on the record, 12 pass attempts, 14 passing plays for the game. So I understand that you feel like that's stuck in the Stone Ages and this and that. I just look at it, and I don't feel like the offensive play calling has cost them wins. Look, Keaton Slovis had 500 yards through 6 quarters. Was he 4th or 5th in passing yards in the ACC, only playing 6 quarters? Pitt as a team is like 5th in the ACC in pass attempts. It's not like they're not passing. I don't know if there's maybe just part of us that we watched Mark Whipple's offense for 3 years, right? And I know we all watch a lot of football. We all watch NFL football all the time. We all watch other college football games. I have right on the TV over there. We have the Miami Texas A&M game kind of on in the background to see what's happening there. And so we see a lot of different offensive approaches. And I think more and more it's you got to throw. And this offense is more balanced than that. This offense does have more run in it than that. through the first two games, they were still throwing the ball more than they ran it. There were still more passing plays, if you include all the sacks and throwaways and whatnot. There were still more passing plays than there were runs called against West Virginia and Tennessee. It's just that there actually were running plays called. There was a little bit of an attempt at more balance. Maybe some of the frustration comes from the feeling like they can't really do those, they can't run, and so they should stop because it's not working. But the reality is, I think Frank Cignetti's committed to getting something approaching a balanced offensive attack out of this team and getting this team to have some kind of balance in its offense. And, you know, a night like tonight, eventually they wore them down. Eventually they wore down Western Michigan. And, you know, Izzy Abanikanda goes 10 carries for 64 yards in the fourth quarter. And Vincent Davis goes 6 carries for 53 yards in the fourth quarter. This is my quick scratch tablet math that may or may not be right, but those two guys 16 carries for 117 yards in the fourth quarter based on my math. You know, they wore them down, which is what I think ultimately Cignetti and Narduzzi want to be able to do. They do want to be able to throw, and they know they have to throw, and Keaton Slovis throwing for 500 yards through 6 quarters certainly seems to be evidence that they will throw and want to throw and are going to throw. But they also want to have that balance so that they can kind of consistently have the running game be a threat throughout the game, and then at the end start wearing teams down. And here's the other thing about the running game, and this came into play today. I charted all of Nate Yarnell's passing attempts. It didn't take long, and a whole bunch of them, you know, the first long pass to Jared Wayne, play action. I feel like, yeah, the 37-yard pass to Gavin Bartholomew, play action. The big pass to Konate Mumfield on the final scoring drive, play action. The touchdown pass to Konate Mumfield, play action. Those things worked because of the commitment to the running game, because Western Michigan said, you guys aren't going to do anything other than run. We're going to sell out to stop it. Well, guess what? You run play action, and Gavin Bartholomew's all by himself down there. You run play action, you've got these openings. You've got Jared Wayne in one-on-one coverage because you've been running the ball so much, and the play action worked. And I think, first of all, I have a hard time judging Frank Cignetti based on this game. We have to understand the limitations that were placed on this offense and the play calling and the game plan due to the quarterback. All right. They picked Nate Yarnell. They picked Nate Yarnell because in practice this week, he was the better option. I mean, I think that's the assumption. I think it's a safe assumption that he outplayed Derek Kyler in practice. He made the coaches believe he could run the offense better than Kyler. But going into the game, you have a guy who hasn't experienced live game action in 3 years. And so there's only so much you're going to ask him to do, certainly at the beginning of the game. You're going to ease him into it a little bit. You're going to take your time with him. You're not going to put too much of the game on him. His objectives, maybe in this order, were going to be come up to the line of scrimmage, get ready for the snap, see the defense, make any kind of changes to protection or the blocking scheme that you need to make, hand the ball off securely, and don't commit any turnovers. And that was the thing they really needed from Nate Yarnell tonight. Don't make mistakes. I talked about this earlier, about survival. Don't make mistakes. Don't give the ball to the opponent. And that's what they needed him to do. But there's something to be said for being in a live game environment. And even if the atmosphere at whatever Western Michigan's stadium name is, Waldo Stadium, even if the atmosphere there wasn't like being in Death Valley, it's still tough. You're still in a live game action. You're on a opposing team's field with all that comes with that. And that's not easy. That's not easy. I think that's why some of these plays late, the big pass to Gavin Bartholomew, the touchdown pass. Yes, Yarnell made some good passes on Pitt's third drive of the game. He had 2 big passes to Jared Wayne on Pitt's third drive. And then the other big pass, the pass that got Wayne knocked out of the game, was on the 4th drive. But I think he looked more comfortable on those later passes. The big pass to Gavin Bartholomew, the 2 big passes on the final touchdown drive to Konate Mumfield. And I think he looked more comfortable because he was more settled into the game. He was more comfortable on the field. And I think that can take a little time. You're not going to put a lot on his plate and ask him to do too much if he's not yet comfortable on the field. I think the coaches had to believe he was comfortable before they were going to tell him, have him really start taking the ball in his hands. And then once he was, they made some plays. And so I think, if he was the starter going forward, I think you would sort of see it maybe gradually, maybe not so gradually, just added on, more and more added on to his plate of what they expected him to do. So, I think Frank Cignetti, again, wanted to survive, and believed they could run the ball on Western Michigan. And quite frankly, I think, Michigan State certainly ran the ball better on Western Michigan. Ball State probably ran the ball better on Western Michigan. I'm not going to make any assumptions about the state of Pitt's running game right now or their run blocking because it doesn't seem like it's all that much better. But eventually they were able to wear down Western Michigan's defense and start breaking some of those runs. And Abanikanda did it, and Vincent Davis did it as well. But I think Cignetti did what he felt he had to do given the circumstances, which was, how can we survive? And so, I think Cignetti's offenses have been better than he's gotten credit for in the first two games. And then I think tonight he did what he had to do. And I think maybe it'll look a little different when they play Rhode Island next week. Again, I'm assuming Nate Yarnell is going to start there. Scott Eisenberg says that Marquez Williams interception really deflated Western Michigan for a while and allowed Cignetti to stick to running. If it's a tie game instead of up a touchdown, I don't know what transpires. That's a great point. That came, it was late in the first quarter, right? Yeah. It was Western Michigan's second drive. First play of the drive. Marquez Williams picks it off and goes in for a touchdown. Having that 10-point cushion and, ultimately after the fumbled punt, Western Michigan gets a field goal out of it. But it's a touchdown cushion still. And they built it back up to 10, and then it went back down to a touchdown. But they had a cushion there where they didn't have to press on offense. They didn't have to force it on offense. That was a huge, huge play in the game for Marquez Williams to make that play. I joked on Twitter, well, not joked, actually. I said on Twitter that I thought Eric Hallett was the MVP of the game. And I said that because the TV announcer, I think the color commentator said, Izzy Abanikanda is the MVP of this game. I said, no, man. Eric Hallett is the MVP of this game, or maybe co-MVPs with Marquez Williams for all those interceptions. Because the game plan here, the survival approach, if you want to survive the game, if you want to be like Ice-T and Rutger Hauer and be out there surviving the game, the approach is twofold. You're going to sit on the ball and hold on to it for a really long time, and the defense is just going to play lights out. And you pretty much got that. Pitt's time of possession, what they end up with? 38 minutes and 36 seconds. And Pitt's defense got, 2 sacks and 3 turnovers? Is that right? Or do they have 1 sack? No, they had 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, 4 tackles for loss. That was what they needed to do. They needed to play that kind of game. And really, aside from basically one play, they were pretty much lights out on defense. That's what they needed to do. And so Cignetti called a game that fit into that game plan. And to your point, Scott, Marquez Williams making that interception gave them the cushion to keep playing that way. Reed Worth says, is Nate Yarnell good? Haha, looked like a clear number 3 to me. What's your background on Nate? The story with Nate Yarnell, and they told it a lot during the game. And we covered him as a recruit. He was a priority target for Mark Whipple. He was somebody Whipple really liked in that recruiting class of 2021. He is at Lake Travis High School, and he committed to Pitt after his junior season. And his junior season, he only started 6 games, and he took over for Hudson Card, who was a 4-star quarterback who went to Texas. I think he's still at Texas. I think he was the guy who came in when Quinn Ewers got hurt in that game against Alabama. Hudson Card was the starter. Hudson Card got hurt. Nate Yarnell stepped in, started 6 games in a row, including into the playoffs, 1 or 2 playoff games, and went 6-0 as the starter. Completed like 67% of his passes over that stretch, averaged about 200 yards per game, and that's those 6 games as a starter. Hudson Card came back in, won one playoff game, lost the next. 2020, so that was 2019 when Nate Yarnell was a junior. 2020, he's expected to step into the starting job. He's going to be the man. This is his year. It's going to be a breakout year, and he hurts his hand, and he doesn't play at all. He comes to Pitt. He's here for spring camp. He's here in training camp in August, and the coaches love him. They think he looks really good. They like his potential. They think he's got a really high ceiling. He's going to be really good. And then at some, still expecting a red shirt because they have Kenny Pickett back. And at some point during the fall, he suffered, I think it was a Liz Frank injury. And that takes him out. No more practicing in the fall. No more practicing in the spring. By summer, he's back on the field. August training camp, he's practicing again, but he's no better than the number 3 and maybe even the number 4. And either way, he's not getting nearly the reps that Kedon Slovis and Nick Patty are getting. And then once the season starts, in the week leading up to the West Virginia game, not only is he not the number 1 or number 2, he's not really even the number 3. He's running the scout team. He's throwing passes for the scout team, as Pat Narduzzi said, to give us a good look, to give their defense a good look out there. And so, really not even taking snaps in Pitt's offense up until this week. Once they, Kedon Slovis and Nick Patty got hurt against Tennessee, Nate Yarnell and Derek Kyler started getting a whole lot of work actually running Pitt's offense in practice this past week. And so talk about a crash course. And again, this also plays into the idea that Frank Cignetti was limited in what he could call, because he really basically had a week to get these guys ready. And Yarnell ends up being the preferred option there, and he certainly seems to have worked out. As a high school kid, he was a 3-star quarterback prospect. Not a lot of film on him because he played, again, 6 games. 6'6", 200-pound quarterback. As you can see, you could see the size on TV. Got a live arm, strong arm, seemed to have decent touch. Didn't really run around a whole lot in high school. But he seemed like a guy that Mark Whipple really liked off of those 6 games that he played as a junior. And that's kind of the story. Now he's got a win for Pitt, a road win for Pitt. Let's see. Bobby Fitzmaurice says, might as well give Nate the start next week. Give Slovis and Patty the time they need to heal before conference play begins. Yeah, I absolutely. I agree with you. I think that's what you need to do. I think give everybody you can as much time to heal before ACC play as possible. Zachary Herbster disagrees. He says, Nate Yarnell was fine, but I want Kedon Slovis back next week. I can understand that. You want Slovis to play and keep getting comfortable in the offense. And if he's healthy, he should play. I think it's probably in everyone's best interest to take your time and give him another week. Give everybody another week to heal up. Because, I just think it would benefit everyone. Luca Carroll says, a ton of injuries, a third-string freshman quarterback on the road, and we win by 21. That's a good Saturday night. Hey, amen, brother. I think it is. I think when you put all the factors together on this, never minding the fact that this was a team that beat Pitt last year, and I don't think revenge was. I think revenge was overplayed as a factor. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe the Pitt coaches and players really bought into it. But I think this was just about survival because they've got their focus on more than just beating Western Michigan to get back at them for last year. Jessica Rodriguez says it's tough to say how good Nate Yarnell is from the limited playbook and lesser opponent, but he looked like he could develop into a star. Good decision-making, good presence, and mobility. Yeah, first of all, I'm happy to have you here watching the podcast, Jessica. We don't get as many female viewers around, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, with a limited playbook, which I think he certainly had, he seemed comfortable out there. And if he didn't seem all that comfortable early on, I think by the end of the game, he looked pretty comfortable on the field and running the offense. You had a delay of game penalty. You had 1 or 2 timeouts that were called because the play clock was running down. You had a false start or 2 where, guys are just not used to how he calls the cadence. You had those sort of typical things you're going to have when a brand new young quarterback steps in as the starter. You're going to have some of those issues, and Pitt certainly had them. But overall, it's hard to dislike what you saw out of Nate Yarnell when he goes, what was it? 9 of 12? 9 of 12 was his stat line. I had it here. 9 of 12 for 179 yards. It's hard to argue with that. 75% completion. Think the coaches will definitely take that. Joe Lawrence says, thinking it makes sense to get Slovis back in for a half next week and then put Nate in. I mean, maybe. If he feels as close to 100% as he's going to feel all season, giving him a half is an interesting idea, Joe. I still don't know if I would do it, but maybe just to keep him fresh and keep him in rhythm. I mean, probably, like, honestly, other than the guys who I think Nick Patty, Rodney Hammond are probably going to be out for a little while. Maybe Deslin Alexander too. But like of guys who maybe you could push to come back this week, Keaton Slovis, maybe Haba Baldonado. Who knows what's going on with some of these other guys? Deion Hayes, maybe a Jared Wayne or Marquez Williams, Nate Temple. They're all sitting. Okay, for me, I'm going with Yarnell as the starting quarterback, and you know what? Actually, I'm sitting Izzy Abanikanda too. I'm giving him a rest. I'll go with Vincent Davis, and I'll go with Sibo Flemister, who had some nice runs. Actually, should give a shout-out to Sibo. We talked so much about Izzy, but Sibo ended up with 4 carries for 28 yards. He had a long carry of 17 yards. I thought he looked pretty strong in his running. I was more impressed with him on that play than I was on his carry against West Virginia. I would go with Vincent Davis and Sibo Flemister as your top running backs. I would get Daniel Carter some work at tailback if that's what need be. But I would probably give Izzy Abanikanda the week off here as well. Maybe Gavin Bartholomew. There was some indication he was maybe a little banged up coming out of the Tennessee game. I might give him, like, you don't want to bench your whole team, but you got to keep your eyes on the prize here. This is week 4. This is an FCS opponent, and you've got 8 weeks of ACC play coming up, or 8 games of ACC play coming up after it. I think you have an opportunity here to rest up a little bit. Let's see here. Santa Likes Blonde says, all summer Pat Narduzzi kept talking about how injury-free his team was, and I kept saying, shut up, you're going to jinx us. Boy, was I right. I mean, that was Narduzzi just talking. I mean, they had guys that were hurt. Guys were hurt all the time. I mean, it's training camp. Guys are going to get hurt. They're on the sidelines. He doesn't want to talk about any of them, but, I mean, that's the reality of it. I hear you, though. You know what I would compare it to, actually? More than... drawing a parallel or connection with training camp, I would draw a connection with last season, where they stayed pretty healthy pretty much all year. Jake Cradle got hurt. That was a big one. Gabe Hoy got hurt right at the end. But they pretty much stayed healthy throughout the season. They're obviously they're paying for it now. ZC717 says, Nate Yarnell played well when they let him throw. He made plays when he needed to. He didn't make mistakes, and they won a game by 3 touchdowns against an opponent they should have handled. I will say, he looked really good. He was 9 of 12. 9 of 12 is a really good game. His first incomplete pass was like a fade from the 5. The timing wasn't there with Jared Wayne. His next incomplete pass was 3rd and 5 when he threw to Gavin Bartholomew, and that pass should have been intercepted, quite frankly. And then he threw one more pass after that in the first half, where he was sort of scrambling, rolling out, whatever you want to call it, and threw to Izzy Abanikanda on a pretty rough pass. And then he had one more 2nd and 7 he threw to Abanikanda, and it was incomplete, and it was almost like a screen pass that really was asking for trouble. He had some rough patches in this game. So you say Yarnell played well when they let him throw. I think they were trying to be judicious about when they chose to let him throw and not just have 25 pass attempts or 30 pass attempts because, again, a guy just trying to settle into the rhythm of the game and get comfortable playing on the field. But by the end of the game, I think he was handling it pretty well. The Panther Room says a win is a win, but Frank's offense is so predictable. The first 3 games, I don't see how we can beat a good team. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'll tell you how they beat a good team because they've got good players. All right. Keaton Slovis, when he gets out there and he's healthy, is a really good quarterback. Jared Wayne and is a really good wide receiver. I think Kanate Mumfield, you look at it tonight. Let me actually check. I wanted to see. Kanate Mumfield, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 35 yards and a touchdown. And I think he was really good. I think Kanate Mumfield made 3 really big catches for Pitt, 3 really good catches for Pitt. His first catch was a 19-yard gain to convert 3rd and 18. His second catch was and then he had 2 catches on the final drive, both on first down. One was on 1st and 10, one was on 1st and goal for the touchdown, and they were both big catches, big plays, and really good catches by Kanate Mumfield. So, I think they beat good teams because they will beat good teams because they have good players. Talking about the offense specifically with Slovis, Mumfield, Wayne. I think Gavin Bartholomew is a good player who can play against anybody in the ACC. I think Izzy Abanikanda, especially the way he was running at the end of the game. Running really strong. And, that's what'll do it. And I think when they're at full strength and everybody's comfortable with the offense, Frank Cignetti, I think, will call the plays that feature those playmakers. I think that's what he's done through 3 games. He's just had some limitations and difficulties and challenges when you lose your starting quarterback for the half of one game, the Tennessee game, and then don't have him for the entirety of the next game. This game here tonight at Western Michigan. Let's see, XMarks97 says Yarnell can spin it. Yeah, he can throw it. No doubt. Josh Newark says, rely on your stud defense, minimize the mistakes, and get out with a win. Yeah, and that's exactly what they did. Brock Madonic says, what was the difference from last year's game to tonight's game in Kalamazoo? What stood out to you? Well, if we're going to compare last year's game against Western Michigan to this game, the biggest difference was that they didn't have Caleb Ellaby running that offense. I do think if Western Michigan brought everybody back, if Caleb Ellaby was playing out there and Sky Moore was playing, and they were running that same offense, they didn't lose their offensive coordinator, I do think they would have been more effective. I think Pitt would have had more answers for what they were doing. I think they would have been better prepared for what they were doing, and I think they would have been better at stopping it. But I also think they probably would have had more success. I think Western Michigan would have had more success. And the biggest change from last year to this year is the change at quarterback for Western Michigan. Pitt's defense played a really good game tonight. It would have been more challenging if they had Caleb Ellaby and Sky Moore still out there. And so that's the biggest change. If they played against that offense from last season, I'm not sure if they would have won. I don't know if they could have scored enough to keep up. They might not have gotten, we talked about that interception return for a touchdown that kind of served as, basically insurance that allowed Frank Cignetti to call the game that he wanted to call and the game that Pat Narduzzi wanted him to operate. And I'm not sure they get that pick 6 when they're playing against Caleb Ellaby running that offense they ran last season. So, that to me is probably the biggest difference. It's not it's not the play of Nate Yarnell. It's not the running of Izzy Abanikanda. It's the change in Western Michigan's offense that I would say is the biggest difference. BA says, Nate Yarnell was very impressive. Thought the game plan was too conservative, but in hindsight, Coach Cignetti knew what he was doing. Kudos. Yeah, it's results-oriented, right? Outcome-based evaluations, and the outcome was a pretty successful win. I think it was just, there was probably an element of feeling among the coaches of don't lose it in the first half by trying to do too much. Don't lose it in the first half by trying to have Yarnell throw all the time, all right? Ease into it. And you get into the second half, if you need to throw a little more, you want to throw a little more, if you feel comfortable putting in some pass plays, okay, go for it. But for now, going to have to rely on the offensive line and rely on the running backs to try and carry this game. And that's, I think that's what the objective was. And I think that's ultimately what they did until, they got to a point where they felt comfortable with Yarnell and Yarnell felt comfortable. throwing the ball. And then I think they did it a little bit more. Let's see here. Garrett Sherwin says Nate Yarnell should start next week. Give him some confidence and keep Keaton Slovis healthy. I agree. Help Keaton Slovis, give him time to get back to full health. Jason Martell says, really nice job by Nate Yarnell in his first start in about a decade. I hope these injuries aren't long-term and Pitt is being extra careful. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're not going to know anything for sure probably until 2 weeks from now when they play Georgia Tech. Then we'll find out really what injuries are severe and which ones aren't. Like I say, I think they'll be smart with players this week. They'll hold guys for this Rhode Island game because they shouldn't need those guys to win this game. Chris says the offense has barely had a chance to show what it can do. Very encouraging performances these first 3 weeks, considering new system, new offense coordinator, new quarterback, and then the injuries can be special, in my opinion, once everything clicks. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot too, Chris. I'm kind of on board with you on that I think we've seen this offense have enough success that we can say, I think they're capable of putting it together. I think they're capable of, when they've got everybody healthy, or at least a bunch of the guys healthy, when they've got Keaton Slovis healthy, and Jared Wayne's able to play, and everybody, basically those two, at least, are the guys who are out right now. I think they're the crucial ones when it comes to getting this offense on track. I think when you've got those guys out there, when you've got those guys playing, and if you could keep them together for a few games, I think there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of potential because I believe in the personnel. I think they have really good players, like I just talked about a few minutes ago. And I think Frank Cignetti knows how to use good playmakers. I think Frank Cignetti knows what to do with guys like Jared Wayne and Kanate Mumfield and Bub Means and Gavin Bartholomew and Izzy Abanikanda. I think he knows what to do with a quarterback like Keaton Slovis. I really do think he's, he knows what he's doing when it comes to running offenses and calling plays. Just need to get out of this opening 2-game gauntlet of Power 5 non-conference opponents, and then the third game not having your starting quarterback. Ideally by October, they'll have everybody they need. Let's see here. Josh Newark says there should be no complaints. Third-string quarterback on his first action in 3 years. Backup center. Jared Wayne out at halftime. Marquez Williams out at halftime. Deion Hayes, Rodney Hammond out. We should be ecstatic at this W. I mean, I think there's a lot to I think there's a lot to like out of this game. I think, winning a game under these circumstances with the injuries, winning a game the way they did, where they just kind of battled back. Not battled back because they weren't down, but they did keep battling. And when you watch that second half, third quarter and particularly into the fourth quarter, just the attitude and the swagger as they realized, the offensive line and the running backs, as they realized they were taking over the game. It's something to see, it's something to behold when you watch a team do that and really just kind of take over a game, particularly with the running game. And that's what they were able to do. And it was impressive to see. And so, I think there's a lot to like about this game. And like I said, they survived. That was the number one goal. Santa Lakes Blonde says, Frank equals, I hope I can stay awake. I can't believe I'm saying this, but can call Nebraska and see if we can get our coordinator back. Hold on. Let's check here. Nebraska. Now, to find Nebraska scores, we all want to go to the Big Ten, right? Big Ten scores. Okay. Nebraska. 49-14. Well, that's not good. 49-14. 164 passing yards. Eesh. Well, they ran the ball 45 times. That's weird. 164 passing yards, though. Not great. Not great when it comes to the former offensive coordinator. So, I don't know. Maybe you can call Nebraska, see if he wants to come back. They're pretty much firing everyone. So, you got that. ZC717 says, I pretty much erased last year's team out of my mind. I've accepted Pitt's going to run the ball more than they did last year and rely on their defense. Yeah. And it's not just about relying on their defense, and it's not just about they're going to be a team that just runs the ball and plays good defense. They're going to pass. Again, I mean, they're top 5 in the ACC in pass attempts through 2 games. Keaton Slovis is top 5 in the ACC in passing yards with 6 quarters of play. They're not, they're still throwing the ball. It's not run the ball and play defense. That's not how this team is built or what they're going to try to do. They just want to have a little more balance in the offense, which I think is an admirable goal. I think it's something that's fine to shoot for. I mean, it's a different team. Yes, it's a different team from last year. They're going to have a different approach, but they're still going to try to attack with the passing game. Let's see. Pitt 13-9 says, I don't even now know how I'm still awake. That game was so boring. Frank sucks. Well, that's not very nice. I don't think that's a very nice thing to say, but I thought it was a pretty I can't say it was an exciting game. I'll tell you this, it was fast. None of these 4-hour games like we had in the first 2 weeks. It was down to like 3.5 hours or something like that. So, I'm not going to it was not a long game, so you got that going for it. But look, this was a game where they had to figure out the best way to try to get out with a win, right? And so watching the game, I think it was kind of interesting and at times even exciting to sort of see how they were going to come up with a new answer. I was excited every time Pitt's defense came on the field because I feel like those guys were playing. Maybe they had something to prove. Maybe they had a little bit of a revenge on their mind. I don't think it was a major motivating factor, but maybe for the defense it was. David Allen says the conservative run-first survive strategy led to poor performance and a slight lead. Once they started to mix in more passes, they won. I don't know. They threw like 5 passes in the second half, 6 if you count the pass interference. I guess 7 pass plays if you want to include the sack. It's not like all of a sudden they started peppering. I mean, there were 14 pass plays called for Pitt in this game. 7 in the first half, 7 in the second half. I'm not sure that it really changed anything for them. I mean, they got big plays out of the passing game. There's no question. But they also started wearing down Western Michigan's defense and running the ball better. So it was all of it. I'm not sure that throwing more, because they didn't throw more, I don't think that was really a big factor. I like in terms of changing the momentum of the game. They were just able to finish drives, I think, because the running game got going. Alex Getchell says that was a very boring first half. I'm so sick of these 5-minute reviews just to hear the play stands. Yeah, reviews are annoying. It's annoying when nothing ends up getting overturned, but I'm one of these guys that just wants them to get it right. So if the reviews help them get it right, I'm on board. Garrett Sherwin says, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I'm quite encouraged by the Pitt defense the past 2 weeks. Yeah, I think so. They've been playing well. They give up some plays every now and then. They give up some plays every now and then to Tennessee, and they'll probably give up some plays every now and then to every team they face. But 58 yards allowed in the first half against Western Michigan. What they give up total in the game, 180 yards of offense. 50 rushing yards, 2 of 11 on third down. That's really good, That's really good. You hold a team under 200 yards of total offense, you had a pretty good game. Josh Newark says, only complaint is Ben Saul's. Better call Scarton. It's funny. So Saul's missed, obviously. He missed the 27-yard field goal. He also made one from 48, and he made one from 23. That 27 was a tough miss. I think they're just going to have to they're going to have to decide if they just want to ride it out with Saul's and let him figure his stuff out, or if the inconsistency is killing them and they need to make a change. I don't know what the right answer is there. He nailed one from 48. It was a really good kick. Do you make a change in that? In that situation, he went 2 of 3. And I know everybody's still probably a little gun shy or a little bit jaded after the Tennessee game where he missed 2 field goals in a game that ultimately ended up being, going to overtime. I don't know. The coaches will have to base it on what they see in practice, I guess. David Allen says, too many excuses. If we're trying to survive against crap teams, we might as well take the 8-4 record. We're defending Power 5 champs playing chumps. Go at them. With your third string... Oh, that was the end of David's part. I'm going to finish it for him. Go at them. David said that. Now me. With your third string quarterback who hasn't played in a live football game in 3 years, fire the ball downfield. Take a lot of shots. Throw. Come on, man. Okay? Trying to survive is a perfectly admirable goal in this situation given the circumstances. All right? You have him throwing all over the place. You go at them. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to have mistakes that end up costing you the game. He had the pass in the end zone. He had the 3rd and 5 pass that he threw to the end zone to Gavin Bartholomew, and it was almost intercepted. It was a poorly thrown ball. All right? That's the risk you take, particularly in his first start. Now, maybe against Rhode Island next week, they don't run it. What did the final comparison be here? What did it end up being? Let's see. 52 times and 12 passes. Maybe they don't have that kind of a drastic split. Still probably run it more than they throw it because they should be able to run on Rhode Island. But maybe they don't have such a drastic split next week. They ramp it up a little bit more. They let him throw a little bit more. But his first game, I mean, it's just they wanted to be smart. If they lost the game, they lost the game. They didn't want to lose it because they made mistakes because they were trying to be too aggressive with a first-time starting quarterback. All right, let's see. Anybody else have something? What else do we have here? See what James Toomey says. Chris, I love you. No coverage in Kalamazoo with a game time decision at quarterback. Please explain in detail. Are you talking about me not being in Kalamazoo? No, I didn't go to Kalamazoo for the game. I didn't go to the Western Michigan game, despite the fact that there was a quarterback decision, a game time quarterback decision. Except, James, if you read the message board around like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe earlier, we pretty much laid out everything for you. You probably had a pretty good feeling that you had a pretty good sense, I would say, knowing that Nate Yarnell was going to start the game. We put that stuff on the board, and I think it was pretty clear where things were headed and how things were looking. So regardless of whether I was in Kalamazoo or Pittsburgh or anywhere else, I think we still had a pretty good coverage of the game time decision. So if that's what you're asking me to explain in all caps in detail, James, then that's what I would explain. I mean, I would explain that we make decisions every year, budgetary decisions on covering games in person, or if we want to travel on road games and things like that. And quite frankly, I'd much rather stay here, keep an eye on the game from home, and do this post-game show afterward because it's more fun to sit here and talk to you guys than it is to sit in a hotel in Kalamazoo. That's just me. Let's see. Scroll down here and see what else people are saying. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says, just got one thing to say tonight. That is a big win, and thank God we have Rhode Island next week with all these injuries. Yeah, it works out well. It works out well the way this schedule's set up. I know it was a bit rough for Pitt opening with West Virginia and Tennessee back-to-back in the first 2 weeks of the season. But, kind of the upside is having this FCS game in week 4, which they did they do that last year? Yeah, they had the FCS game. They opened with UMass, but then they had, I forget who they even played in the FCS game. But they had the FCS game. Oh, New Hampshire, right? Because they were all angry about the Western Michigan game, so they stomped New Hampshire in week 4. Having that FCS game in week 4 is not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it does give you a chance to kind of rest up a little bit. All those SEC teams have their FCS game in like week 12 or something, like right before the regular season finale to try and rest up and get ready for, potential shot at the postseason. So, yeah, it's not a terrible way to set up the schedule to have this game coming up Rhode Island here at the end of September and be a little bit of a break before you jump into the ACC. Matthew Emery says, obviously it worked out, but I just don't understand dressing Slovis but not playing him. In my mind, you are either good to go or you aren't. Yeah, I mean, I don't think... I think the coaches were going to see how Kedon Slovis felt through the day and in the pregame workouts or warm-ups, but with an eye toward most likely starting Nate Yarnell. And I think, even as the game was going on, Kedon Slovis didn't even have a headset on. Like, he wasn't listening to Frank Cignetti and what was being said. So I don't think it was ever really a possibility that he was going to go in. I think it wasn't going to happen. So, dressing him, not dressing him, maybe that's Pat Narduzzi trying to mess with Western Michigan. I'm not sure what that was about, but, that's that. BA says Yarnell should be even more comfortable next week, as well as the coaches trusting him more equals more passing slightly, but enough to help the running game. I think when you go into the Rhode Island game now, you are going to throw a little more. You're going to be able to throw a little more. Kedon Slovis should attempt more than 12 passes. But you should also be able to run well on Rhode Island. That should be a game where you can establish the run, you can lean on the run. Now, I would keep throwing it, maybe get him upwards 15 to 20 pass attempts just to help him get more and more comfortable in the game. But you should run the ball. You should be able to run the ball a lot and run it well. ZC717 says Bub Means and Kanate Mumfield both came up with big catches tonight when they were called upon. They sure did. There's no question about that. The Real Deal says the lights weren't too bright for Yarnell. He's a ball player. Start him next week. He has the potential to be better than Patty. We'll only know if they play him. No need to play Slovis next week. Yeah, I agree. I agree as far as next week. I don't think there's a need to play Kedon Slovis. You should be able to win with Nate Yarnell. And Yarnell versus Patty, I don't know. We'll see more of Yarnell before I decide that. Let's scroll down here. John Waffle H2P says the offense is a super chatter, so we're going to read his comment. But come on, John. He says the offense needs to be rearranged. Terrible. I don't know what you want me to say. They were playing with their third string quarterback, a guy who might have been fourth string or third string, and he was in there starting. And the last time we saw a third string quarterback go in, it was Davis Bevel in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And how well did that go? Wasn't so hot. The offense is not what you want it to be every week. The offense obviously needs to be more dynamic and needs to be more explosive and all of that. But, they were limited by what they had. And they did the best with what they had, I think. All right, let's see what else we got here. We're over the hour mark, but let's see anybody else has anything to say. Ryan Rotas says, I could watch Daniel Carter go 3 yards in a cloud of dust 60 times a game, and I'd be having the time of my life. All right. Good for you. Let's see. Benjamin Robinson says, Izzy looked like he got shot out of a cannon on his longest run tonight. So explosive. Yeah, I agree. He seemed to be running faster and stronger as the game went on, and I think that's an encouraging sign for sure. And then let's see, we can make this the last one. Jesse Loves Comics says, what rank will we go up to in the AP poll? Probably 21. Well, so much of it depends on what happens around you, right? So Pitt is 23 in the AP. Right above them is Penn State. They won. Texas, they won. Ole Miss won. Did Texas win, or is that... Lost track of things here. Texas. Did Texas win, or is that game still going on? I think they won. Texas, where are you? Goodness. Yeah, Texas won. Sorry. Texas beat UTSA. Ole Miss won. I think Wake Forest won. Did Florida win? Pretty much everybody. Yeah, Florida won by 3. Just barely escaped against South Florida at home. I don't know about Baylor. Yeah, Baylor won by a lot over Texas State. Tennessee blew out Akron. I mean, so now you're up into like the range of like, now you're up to like Utah at number 14. And Utah is beating San Diego State as we record this 35-0 with 3 minutes left to go. So, I mean, pretty much everybody won ahead of them. And then you get up to number 13, Miami. So, and Miami's playing Texas A&M, who is what? Texas A&M fell out. Or no, they're down to number 24. So, if anything, Texas A&M could beat Miami and potentially jump Pitt because they're one spot behind Pitt right now. So I don't know if Pitt is really going to have much of an opportunity to move up. I think best case scenario, they just kind of sit right around that 23 spot and just try and make their climb once they get into the ACC schedule. So, all right. Let's see here. Anything else we got to do? Yeah, Michigan State lost, and I guess BYU lose as well. Where's BYU? Yeah, BYU lost to Oregon. But, I mean, Michigan State was number 11 and BYU was 12. I mean, are they going to fall far enough to affect Pitt at number 23? I'm not sure about that. So, we'll see. But we'll find out all the rankings in the polls on Monday. That stuff will come. We'll certainly have lots of coverage coming out of this game all weekend on Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Listen, while you're here, make sure you like this video. That helps us a lot. We really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button right down there. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you'll always know when we go live for the live show on Wednesday nights, the Panther-Lair show at 8:30 p.m. every Wednesday, or for these post-game shows. We don't know what time they're going to start. Well, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on notifications, you'll get an alert sent to your phone, and it'll tell you, hey, Panther-Lair is starting to talk. You should go get in the post-game show or get in the live show. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. You always get an alert about it. And, of course, you'll get an alert when we release our morning Pitt videos, which we do every Monday through Friday, every morning, Monday through Friday. Just kind of talking about everything going on in the world of Pitt sports. Lots of stuff here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. Stay tuned, Panther-Lair.com. Lots of coverage throughout the weekend, heading into the week as Pitt is just about to wrap up non-conference play. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, where the message boards are hopping tonight. Lots of people online, lots of people talking about this game at Panther-Lair.com. Pitt's 2-1, fresh off a win over Western Michigan. They'll wrap up the non-conference play next weekend against Rhode Island at Acrisure Stadium. We'll have lots to talk about between now and then. So stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We will give you all the coverage that you could possibly need. So thanks everybody who joined on the live chat tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Really appreciate everybody hanging out and chatting about the game. It's what we do every Wednesday night at 8:30. We have a conversation. So, on the live show, we have the back and forth just like we did tonight. So make sure if you enjoy the post-game show, come hang out at the live show on Wednesday night at 8:30. So youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We appreciate it. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the weekend. We'll talk to you Monday morning for the new Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.